I was around 10 years old. It was late at night and my mom was just finishing up the dishes when suddenly someone knocked on the front door. Mom dried her hands off on the dish towel and walked towards the door. The impatient person knocked louder this time. When Mom opened the door, in walked a police officer. He came in and he closed the door behind him. "I'm sorry to intrude, but can I please sit down?" The cop asked her in a nearly panicked voice. Yeah, but is everything okay?" she asked him. He walked towards the table and took a seat. "Something happened," he said. Mom turned and looked at me. I was already staring at the whole situation. "Sweetie, this is your Uncle John," she told me. The cop turned to look at me, like he just realized I was there. I didn't say anything, and he and I just stared at each other. I knew he was nearly scared to death, and I wanted to know why. Mom went to pour him a cup of coffee. When she came back and placed it on the table in front of him, he reached out and grabbed her arm. "Please say a prayer to God for me," he pleaded. "Please, I don't want to die." "What happened to you?" she asked him. This is what he told her. He was driving along a country road where the ranches and farms are. It was a part of his job, I guess. It was at night, obviously, and his headlights were on. When he drove around the corner of the hill, something big was in the middle of the road. He slowed down, and as he got closer to it, he said it looked like the back of a giant man wrapped in a thick cloak. So he put the cruiser in park, rolled down his window, and had the spotlight on this guy. He thought the tall man was in some sort of trouble, because he was just standing there, and his shoulders were shaking weirdly. My uncle called out to him and didn't get a response. He was about to get out of his cruiser when just then the tall guy turned around to face him. When that thing turned around, it had the body of a large bird and the face of a man. It cursed at me and then spread out its wings and took flight, and flew towards me. I put it in drive and never drove so fast in my life, Uncle John told her. Nowadays, when I see Uncle John, I always want to ask him about what he saw and where, but I don't want to offend him. Mom never talks about anything paranormal. She says such things shouldn't be repeated. Sorry, Mom, but I'm repeating it. I have been stewing on this story for a while now, not gonna lie. I had a few drinks, so pardon the errors and rambling. I'm not the best storyteller. This takes place in New York, midsummer. It was my best friend's last day at his old house, which was filled with weird stuff. I've experienced stuff there and have a few experiences that can be boiled down to ghosts all the way to feeling like my life was in danger, which is why I refused to spend the night there, as that was when the feeling came. So this was their last day at the old house, getting all their stuff to their new house, and I was helping them that day. All I remember from that day is walking in the house seeing the windows filled with dead flies, like more than I thought could be in a house. And then driving to their new house at night, which had to be at least 8 hours of missing time, it felt like. I was confused and I asked them, "Where are we?" And I was told that we were in some town in the middle of nowhere on the way to the new house. I said, "But we never got the rest of your stuff." My friend's brother looked at me concerned and said, "Yeah, we did." "What happened?" I said. And I was just told that they would tell me later. This is a story best to come from their mouth, as I can't remember that 8 hours. It was just gone to me. And really, I can only take their word on what happened. All they said was that I was very quiet the whole time when stuff went down in the house. We're driving and we noticed that there are no other cars on the road, which is strange as we were going through quite a lot of small towns, and it was still early in the night on a Friday. The little brother mentions this, and as soon as he does, a bunch of cars come around the corner at this point. It's just circumstance, but there will be a pattern. We keep driving and we notice all the houses are completely empty. Like the lights are on, but we see no one in them, and no furniture or anything. I mentioned this, and boom, the next house we noticed, people are just standing in the window staring at our car. We noticed this in the next 3 or 4 houses too. At this point, we are pooping bricks and notice this drive is taking way too long. They only moved a few times over, and this drive was taking well over an hour, and it feels like we had been driving in a cornfield for a while. My friend says, "What the heck is going on? We should almost be there by now." And lo and behold, the cornfield ends and we recognized where we are again. Seeing a pattern yet, because I didn't, and I said something that I regret to this day. Man, what other weird stuff is gonna happen tonight? As soon as it came out of my mouth, I knew that I messed up. And my friend and his brother started yelling at me, saying, "Why would I say that?" And we get in a yelling match. We never argue, and my friend slams on the brakes. In front of us is what I can only describe as a big cat, like the size of a person with a head of an owl. Whatever it was, it struck so much fear into the 3 of us. His little brother, a 20-year-old dude who played football, just started crying, and I was on the edge like I was going insane. I wanted to be in a future scientific career, and this stuff wasn't making any sense to me. I was doing mental gymnastics just trying to figure this out. My friend just stared at it until he said someone grabbed their phone. His battery was dead from the time in the old house. This woke me up and I went to grab my phone, and whatever this thing was ran into the field into the darkness as soon as I started pulling it out. After that, we finally get to the new house. We pull into the driveway and back into their parking space. When his brother says, "What the heck is that?" We look up and see what I can say looks like a pure white Bigfoot, crawling around like a spider, and it has red eyes, and it just crawls away into the forest. We sit in the car for 45 minutes until their mother arrives. No drugs or alcohol were taken that night. Well, not until after we got into the new house. The best logical conclusion that I can come to is that there was a CO2 leak in the old house and we were having a group hallucination. This is by far the weirdest day of my life. I mention all of this now because my friend said the new owners of the old house have a for sale sign on it. They were there for less than 2 years. I was told that they had a thriving daycare there for about 1.5 years, and then suddenly, it closed down. Something that crosses my mind every once in a while is a weird experience I had as a child. I must have been 8 or 11 when I was talking to my friend in our apartment complex in broad daylight. As I was doing this, I saw a huge animal that resembled a wolf but much, much bigger. In Tacoma, Washington is where it happened. I would say it was either 2009 or 2011. I knew I wasn't normal. In fact, I stood there shocked the whole time I saw it. It was staring at me like it wanted me to see it. It's almost as if it had something to tell me and was trying or was communicating with me. I had a feeling that it didn't want me to be scared, and I wasn't. Just in complete shock as I locked eyes with it. All it did was slowly walk by until it disappeared around the corner. I would say it was maybe 5 feet in height, very large but not too much visible muscle, pitch black, bright yellow or red eyes. If you've watched Twilight, it looked very similar to that size and body. I don't think it's a dog man, as its body didn't look human-like to me or hunchbacked. But also, it was so long ago that I can hardly remember specific details. And by the way, it was walking on 4 legs, not 2. I remembered when I finally snapped out of it. I struggled to tell my friend what I just saw as she had her back turned from the direction that I saw it in. I gathered all of my friends in the complex so we could go look for it, but found nothing. It's bothered me ever since, and I have a weird feeling as if I had a connection to this creature, and just want to know what it could have been. I was young at the time, but this experience was so strange that I can still remember it vividly. My family was looking at houses to move into, and we were looking at a house with a large backyard with woods behind it. My older sister and I had went off on our own and went to the back near the woods. I was looking into the woods when I saw a tall, white, slow-moving blur. I was looking directly at it, yet it was so blurry and unfocused that it looked like a formless blob. I looked at my sister and she told me to run, so we all ran back inside the house to our parents. I've never been able to find anything online that is similar to what I saw. This is something that happened to me and a group of friends during a sleepover in 4th grade. There were 6 of us, including myself. During the day, we had planned to go out at midnight and play Ghost in the Graveyard. When midnight came around, we all grabbed some flashlights from his garage and headed outside. We played for a while, and then the first creepy thing of the night happened. While we were arguing over who was going to be the ghost next round, we heard the sound of someone running down the road. He lives in a cul-de-sac neighborhood that not many people live on, and it was around 1 a.m. We shined our flashlights at the road and saw nothing. We kept hearing the sound of shoes on the road moving towards us. We looked up and down the road and saw nobody, and we were even able to shine a flashlight on the spot where the sound was coming from and follow it as the sound moved past us, and we couldn't find out what made that noise. Eventually, the sound of someone running on the road moved past us and we couldn't hear it anymore. We were all really confused for a moment, but we quickly brushed it off. We reasoned that we had to be missing something, and there was a logical explanation for it. We quickly forgot about it and started playing again. After a while of playing more, we were getting bored, and then one of us had the idea to go into the woods that were near his house and play the game there. Thinking back on it now, I have no idea how we were all like, yeah, that sounds like fun. So, we walked into the woods. It wasn't too dense, and we were looking for a good spot to make the safe zone. We walked into a clearing that was nearly a perfect circle with a rock in the middle. We thought this was perfect, and said the rock was the safe zone. So, we quickly got back to playing in the woods. We pretty quickly found the second creepy thing that happened that night. While we were playing, it was like there were other people in the woods with us, and everyone noticed it at one point. We would finish a round and someone would say, "Wow, I was chasing him when I noticed you in the tree. That was a crazy spot to hide." And then the other would look at him like he was insane and tell him that he never climbed a tree. He would ask who it was then and nobody could answer. Things like that happened every round. We would see people, and then when we were all together, we would confirm that nobody was over there. We noticed it, but didn't think much of it. And then, the last creepy thing happened as we were about to head back to his house. Me and a friend started to walk back, while the other 4 stayed at the rock and talked there. As we were walking, we heard the 4 scream and run towards us and then run past us. It scared me at first, but then I thought that they must have been trying to scare us. I looked at my friend and laughed, and then looked at where they had ran from. In the trees about 60 yards away from us, there was a figure peeking out from around the tree. It looked humanoid, but it clearly had a deer head. It scared the crap out of me, but I very quickly calmed down, realizing it was just a deer. And then I looked for another second and realized that it couldn't be a deer. It was humanoid, and I saw one of its arms, and it looked like a human arm. The antlers were black and very long and twisted. It was kind of just standing there looking at us. Me and my friend both ran back to his house. We didn't go that far into the woods, but holy crap, it felt like we had run for hours. We eventually ran back to his house and ran inside with the other 4. His dad had to come downstairs to yell at us for being loud, and then we calmed down. We started to talk about what he had seen. The kid that I was with said that he didn't know what it was, and one of the kids who was with the group of 4 said that he saw a demon. After that night, it became like a little urban legend for our friend group. So that's my story. It happened when we were in 4th grade, and now I'm a senior in high school, and I can remember it pretty vividly. None of my friends had any clue to what we saw. We had believed it was a trick of the light or something like that. I had been thinking about this recently, and I have the idea that it could have been a Wendigo. This happened in southeast Michigan, so I don't really know how likely it would have been for it to be a Wendigo. Anyways, that's it. I had just remembered it and thought it would be cool to share it, and maybe see what some other people think. Hey everyone, I live in South Georgia and I typically bike to and from work. I usually leave at around 10:45 and I ride my bike for about 30 minutes to get home, on a dimly lit road. Before I take the long ride home, I usually stop at my girlfriend's house, which is around a minute's ride from my work. On one particular night, my phone died once I had reached her house. As I was about to leave, we both felt a slight feeling of dread. She wished me a safe ride and I began the ride home. Just a little down the road, the light in the front of my bike died, which meant I was flying mostly blind. I stopped and turned on some small little lights on the spokes of my front wheel, so cars could see me for safety reasons. I know the road to my house very well, so I wasn't too worried about my light going out at the time. I'll skip forward past most of my commute since much of it was pretty mundane. My neighborhood sits behind a gas station with a restaurant, with a big parking lot on the other side of the road. Another important detail is that the sidewalk is on the side of the restaurants. As I was riding very close to the entrance of my neighborhood, I saw a large group of people standing in the parking lot. I rode by not saying a word. I was startled when I heard one of them yell something that sounded like, "Hey!" in a loud, forceful tone. I began to bike faster after hearing this. I didn't even look both ways or stop in front of the road. Rather, I just barreled through to the other side. As I looked behind me, as I was entering my neighborhood, I was horrified to see that the group of people were all chasing me on bikes. Terrified, I sped up even more through my neighborhood. I was very scared because I essentially had a beacon on me with these spoke lights on my bike. My neighborhood doesn't have many straight roads, so I tried to lose them as best I could. I'm a very competent biker, so I managed to turn some corners very fast, and every time I looked back, I saw less of them chasing me. After making a very precarious turn onto one of these straight long roads in the neighborhood, I rode as quickly as I could. My house is only one turn away from the end of the road, so I tried to book it to the end. When I was a decent distance down the road, I took one last look behind me and I was horrified. There was this huge thing chasing me. It was very lanky and tall. My guess is around 7 feet tall and had a tall face. It also had very pronounced and long knuckles. I could not make out much detail other than that, but I definitely remember its pale white skin. It was running at me faster than I'd ever seen anything go. I was going the fastest I've ever gone on my bike, yet it was still catching up to me on foot. It looked like it was exerting itself a lot by running that fast. It was leaning heavily into its run, and its arms were moving quickly beside it, with its hands and fists. I let out an audible yelp due to the immense terror that I was feeling at that point. I turned the final time into a smaller street and then turned into my driveway. I jumped off my still moving bike and threw open the door, which was luckily unlocked, and ran inside. When my mom went to see what was up, I told her that there was something chasing me outside. She ran to go lock the door, and I heard a noise that sounded like someone saying, "Hey," outside. My mom later reported it to the police and said that they patrolled the neighborhood at night for about 2 weeks. It was recently that me and my girlfriend were talking about this again, and we realized that that thing was running faster than any human possibly could. Do you guys have any idea what this thing might be and what it was trying to do? Any help would be appreciated.